Hello and welcome. My name is Justin Rush, and this is the Target Data Breach presentation for INT 7223 Enterprise Systems Security. Ever since the inception of the Internet, cyber attacks have become more and more frequent and more serious. Back in 1988, the Morris worm was one of the first recognized worms to affect the world's cyber infrastructure. It spread around computers largely in the US and used weaknesses in the Unix systems to replicate itself regularly. This worm slowed down computers to the point of being unusable. Morris said he was just trying to gauge how big the internet actually was. He subsequently became the first person to be convicted under the U.S. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. Since this incident back in 1988, data breaches and attacks have become almost commonplace. Target, our case study company, is on a long list of companies that have been victimized by attacks over the past 5 years. These companies include eBay, JP Morgan Chase, and Home Depot, all of which had millions of credit card accounts and customer accounts exposed to the public. These attacks are prevalent in today's society. In 2015 alone, the US saw an average of 160 successful attacks per week, and this number had risen 3 times since 2010, when there was only an average of about 50 successful attacks per week. I'm sure many of you have heard of Target, a well-known company that specializes in both food and general merchandise. Target's red bullseye logo is one of the most recognizable logos across the US as well as globally. Before Target, there was a discount department store known as Dayton. Target initially began as a spin-off of these Dayton stores and as a discount version of these stores. Soon, the Target spin-off became very popular, surpassing $1 billion in sales by 1979. Since then, Target has only become more popular with consumers as they sold $16 billion worth of product in the first quarter of 2017 alone. Target has achieved this by offering upscale products at lower prices than their competitors. These products include limited edition clothing created through partnerships with popular fashion designers. There is no doubt that Target has carved itself a spot in today's retail environment. Target's data breach started right around the Black Friday period in 2013. The unofficial date given for the breach is November 27, 2013. This data breach was an ongoing attack since attackers had gained access to the Target network and sat there for about a month before this was discovered by Target. The attackers gained access to about 1 gigabyte of sensitive data during the time of the attack, which included over 40 million credit and debit cards, as well as personal accounts for over 70 million customers. The breach was later announced by Target on December 19, 2013. It appears that before the official attack date, the attackers were able to perform some sort of research on the Target network itself. There is an existing case study on the Microsoft website that discusses how Target utilizes certain software. Unfortunately for Target, this case study is very detailed and may have unintentionally revealed useful information to the attackers regarding technical infrastructure, security patches, and security infrastructure. A simple internet search can reveal additional data about Target's supplier portal, which includes a lot of data about new and existing vendors, as well as how they interface with the company. In fact, the supplier portal may have given the attackers a direct way into Target's network, as the attacker started by compromising one of these third-party vendors. This vendor happened to be a refrigerator contractor by the name of Fazio Mechanical. It is unknown how many vendors the attackers may have targeted, but at least one employee at Fazio Mechanical fell for a phishing email, and this attack resulted in the Citadel malware installing on Fazio computers. This type of malware can capture keystrokes as well as take screenshots and pictures of the victim's computer. The attackers then sat on Fazio's network and waited until the malware provided them with the Fazio Mechanical login credentials. From this point, the attackers used the information gained from Fazio to determine how and where they would be able to access Target's network. How they were able to access the network is not particularly known, but it could have potentially been SQL injection or cross-site scripting. In order to gain entry, and attack Target's internal systems. A malware detection on Target's end actually noticed the unusual behavior, but no employees took action at the time. Once the attackers were in the network, they navigated around using other potential vulnerabilities. Finally, the attackers found and attacked Target's point-of-sale systems. The malware then started grabbing credit and debit card information from swiped cards on these point-of-sale systems and copied the information over the compromised network, where the attackers then stored and sold all the data they had collected. This slide shows the threat model for Target. Target has many important assets to protect, and the diagram lists these assets on the left-hand side of the diagram. Most important is the customer information that is broken down into three major categories: credit card information, personal customer data, and customer contact information. All three of these were exposed in the recent 2013 Target breach. Software systems are also included as assets, as software can cost the company millions of dollars to develop and install. Hackers can use viruses or other malware to compromise this software. On the right-hand side, the three major threats: hackers, employees, and malware exist. Employees can include third-party vendors, like in this case, where attackers were able to use third-party vendors to penetrate the Target network. Employees are also a security threat, as we also saw in this example, as a Fazio employee fell victim to a phishing attack that led to the Target network being compromised. Lastly, the middle section represents the protection Target can take against the threats on the right-hand side. First off, network monitoring can help protect against any potential viruses on a company's system. Target's malware detection sent an alert for unusual activity, but no one took action. Effective training is the last and possibly most important protection. This extends to both employees and vendors. It is widely accepted that individuals are the biggest security flaws of a company, and this proved to be true again in this case, since the entire attack started with the vendor employee falling victim to a phishing attack. Data breaches have a huge impact on a company. First off, the business operations can sometimes be interrupted or otherwise affected by a data breach. Data breaches are also a public relations nightmare for a company, and the consequences are huge for the companies that have been breached. Public opinion can have a big effect on a company, and this is the biggest consequence of a data breach, as a shift in public opinion can have effects in all other parts of the business. A breach can result in less consumers willing to purchase the customer's goods or services, especially if the breach involves credit and debit card information like the one that Target suffered. Business impacts can also be long-lasting. Other business implications that can have effect on the company is the devaluation of the brand name. The financial implications of a data breach can be wide-ranging as well. In the case of Target, they agreed to pay $39 million to credit card companies and banks in order to settle several class action lawsuits that were a direct result of their data breach. Target also suffered an almost 50% decline in profits the next quarter compared to the year before, and the costs do not stop there. The total cost of this data breach for Target could be well over $300 million after several more shareholder lawsuits are completed. This number could increase even further going into the future, as Target has agreed to pay for identity theft protection for the millions of customers that had their data compromised. Another financial cost to consider is the value of the business as a whole, as a breach like this tends to drop the company's stock price, and Target was no different, as their price promptly declined when the news of the data breach went public. Combine this with an increase in insurance costs and a loss of reputation among consumers, and this can be devastating to a company, both financially and from a business operations standpoint. Hiring and staffing decisions are also affected when a data breach like this occurs. The CEO of Target resigned shortly after this breach happened due to pressure from the public as well as the shareholders. Aside from this, Target hired a group of data security experts to investigate the breach and determine how the hackers were able to gain access to the network. This is crucial, as Target had to be sure that the attackers could not re-hack the network using the same methods as before. This also gave Target the opportunity to learn lessons from their breach and to ensure that this would not happen again in the future. In addition to this, the overall security staff was increased in size, and additional staff was hired in order to upgrade the physical point-of-sale systems used in Target stores. Vendor and supplier relationships were also re-evaluated due to the nature of this attack. For risk management purposes, Target has kept a dedicated web page on their site in order to keep a list of lessons learned in order to avoid similar attacks in the future. Some of these lessons included two-factor authentication for vendors, as well as enforcing stricter security and malware protocol for all third-party vendors and suppliers. Target also mandated an increase in employee training for both Target employees and vendor employees to ensure that all employees knew the security standards and how to respond to such incidents. Other smaller steps that have been taken include increased security on the point-of-sale systems themselves. Once a data breach has occurred, a company can only look forward and attempt to mend the relationships that were broken, as well as protect itself to make sure that more breaches do not occur in the future. First, the company must take steps to understand how the breach happened. We saw Target do this by hiring a team of security experts to trace back how the attacker was able to break into the network. This is crucial because a company must show that they can learn lessons from their past failures and not repeat these mistakes into the future. Another aspect of recovering from a data breach is how the company handles the situation with the public and the media. It is important that a company is honest and straightforward when discussing these breaches and does not hold back any relevant information. After the initial disclosure, a company must make sure to keep the public up to date on all the mitigation and security enhancement plans. Finally, companies must have the customer in mind when it comes to restitution of damages caused by the breach. This can vary depending on the situation, and in this case, Target paid for all fees, theft, and other damages related to having credit and debit card information exposed. Due to the fact that data breaches have become so prevalent in today's society, it is not only important for companies to secure their information and assets, but to also develop a plan in the case that they do get breached. This case study really helped me see the different aspects of a data breach and how widespread the effects can be, both within an organization as well as outside of it. There is much to consider when discussing the topic of data breaches, and this case study helped look at it from all different angles. Being able to look at one specific case, like in the case of Target, and look at it from beginning to end was a valuable experience that I'll be able to take away with from this course and into my professional career. Thank you for watching this presentation on the Target data breach, and in the following 2 slides you will see the references used for this material.